get frustrated. I feel like there's a lot of people in the draft where some guys get a pass and some guys don't. Certainly people have taken shots at Justin. Now, the Niners have the third pick, and according to our Chris Mortensen, there's about a 90% chance San Francisco takes Mac Jones at that spot. With that being said, we bring in our quarterback, Timothy Hasselbeck. Tim, good to see you, sir. I will get to you in just a moment, but I want to start with you, Stephen A., on this one. Would you have a problem if Fields falls past 3 at this point?
Me personally, and the reason why I justify it is because I'm going based on NFL people, not myself. Regardless of covering the sport and what have you, the reality of the situation is that, you know, the Tim Hasselbacks and the Matt Hasselbacks of the world and Marcus Spears and others, you played the game, you know the game, you covered the game. And so I'm always going to defer to them, you know, before myself. But once everyone speaks, the Mel Kiper Jr.'s, the Todd McShays of the world as well, then I'm going to pay attention to that. And I just want somebody to explain to me, how does the season end and Justin Fields is universally recognized as the number 2 quarterback in the draft outside of, after Trevor Lawrence. And somehow, some way, without a game being played, without an interception being thrown, without a turnover being committed, without an incompletion pass being thrown, this brother drops to arguably the 5th best quarterback in college football. How the hell does that happen? I mean, I understand that we weren't watching too much of Zach Wilson at BYU, and we didn't see, Trey Lance at North Dakota State, and we did, I saw Mac Jones, and obviously he played lights out in the national championship game. Well, listen, I'm not taking anything away from him because Mac Jones did a really damn good job. But in the same breath, I mean, if I got a guy like Devontae Smith that's catching for 215 yards in the national championship game and 3 touchdowns and running roughshod over my defense, and there's no answer for him whatsoever, that's gonna probably make me look good. I'm gonna think about him in the national semifinal, meaning Justin Fields in the national semifinal game against Clemson, and this brother throws for 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, and just 1 interception, and completes 78% of his passes. I'm going to pay attention to that. I'm going to pay attention to the level of competition that he goes against at The Ohio State compared to what Trey Lance is going against at North Dakota State or Zach Wilson is going against at BYU. And to go from the number 2 pick, or the number 2 quarterback rather, to number 5, where you got literally 4 quarterbacks ahead of you, I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? So for me, the only reason I say I would have a problem, if you're telling me he's not that guy, then I want to know what the hell was everybody saying, what they said for when the college football season ended. Because they were the ones telling us, it's Trey Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, and then there's Justin Fields. And we didn't hear any of those other names. As a matter of fact, immediate speculation was that Mac Jones was going to be a middle to late first-round pick. And now we're talking about he's going number 3 overall. I got a problem with the evaluations that were evidently prematurely put out there.
Well, a lot of football people really like Mac Jones the more they look at him. And so, I like you, Stephen A., I'll defer to their wisdom. I think what rubs people the wrong way, maybe like you, Stephen A., I know it's on my radar, is that sometimes quarterbacks rise, sometimes they fall. But what I've noticed in recent years, after decades of artificial barriers being put in place for black quarterbacks, that vis-a-vis white quarterbacks, black quarterbacks in the draft tend to fall pre-draft, their evaluations. And sometimes it's right, like Daniel Jones looks like he's going to be better than Dwayne Haskins. And sometimes it's wrong, like Mitch Trubisky is not as good as Deshaun Watson, or certainly not Patrick Mahomes, right? But I say Watson because he seemed to be the guy falling and Trubisky the guy rising, and Mahomes maybe didn't do either. But the point is, the correlation that can be made is that your status falls vis-a-vis white quarterbacks. And so that's why my antenna are up when I notice 1, 2, and 3 this year, white guy, right? But that may be correct. We need to see, in the end, we need to see how these guys turn out as pros. Sure, when you survey the landscape, a lot of the recent draft picks who are top quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, I mentioned Lamar Jackson, who went at the end of the first round, only because Ozzie Newsome picked him right. Otherwise, he's in the second round somewhere. Obviously, Dak Prescott and others. We see that draft position, a lot of times they're doing a lot better than their draft position would indicate they should be doing, and that tells me something. But all that is to say that is an issue, but I don't have a problem, per se, with Mac Jones going third if you're talking about in Shanahan, a real brilliant offensive guy who surveys the landscape and says, I want that guy. Okay, that's Shanahan's call. I will say that if Justin Fields falls, let's say, to 8, 9, 10, whatever, then a team like the Bears really need to make a move because he was one of the most valued prospects out of high school, along with Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's done anything to diminish that status. He looks like the total package to my eye, at least, Tim. And some quarterback needy team might have a steal this draft if he falls.
Look, I think he is the total package. I'm on record, and I've been on record a long time before, quite honestly, before the talk about Mac Jones being the pick for the Niners, is saying Justin Fields, I believe, is the second best quarterback in this draft. Now, I also believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars believe that Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in the draft. The problem is the Jaguars just pick one. They don't pick 2 and 3. And so, the one thing I would say about what you said, Stephen A., is I don't think there's not a unanimous feeling about him being the number 2 guy. Look, I felt like when I said he was the second best quarterback in the draft, I felt like I was going against the grain to what I was hearing people say about the quarterback situation. There was a lot of buzz early on about Trey Lance, and then because of when his pro days were happening, it seemed like we weren't talking about him as much. I think that Justin Fields is talented enough to be a league MVP one day. That's how strongly I feel about Justin Fields as a prospect. Do I understand how a team like the Jets could have a preference from a guy like Zach Wilson with his skill set? I actually do. Would I understand what people maybe think the projection could be for Trey Lance? I could see it. It wouldn't be what I do, but I could see it. I'm just being totally candid about it. I'm not here to bash Mac Jones, but when the Niners moved 9 spots, I thought there's no way in the world it's for Mac Jones. To me, I thought it was it had to be for a guy like Justin Fields, maybe Trey Lance. So, look, that's what I thought. Now, look, maybe they feel differently about the position, and that's their right. I know that people do. But, in terms of this, in terms of what I feel about Justin Fields and what he can be, I think he's clearly the number 2 quarterback. If I were the Jets, he would be my selection. And I think that he's going to be a superstar in the right situation in the NFL.
When people look at certain guys in the NFL, I mean, one of the reasons I feel so strongly about Justin Fields is because of what we've seen in terms of the transformation of the modern day quarterback. Of course, Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and Drew Brees, who decided to retire, God bless him. We saw what he brought to the table. But for the most part, when you see quarterbacks in today's day and age, you have to be a dual threat. The ability to have some wheels, to be able to move, obviously goes a long way. Mobility matters at the quarterback position in this day and age. And so I'm not saying, I haven't seen enough of Zach Wilson. I've seen some tape on him, and I've seen him obviously run with the football, and I've seen Trevor Lawrence run with the football. And obviously you think about Trey Lance and Mac Jones to a lesser degree, of course. But Justin Fields seems to be a special kind of talent. With those wheels he has. And then when you combine that with what he has shown in terms of his ability to throw the football, playing at a very, very high level for a big-time program, I mean, that's usually enough. And when you do what he's done and you have the resume that he has, and then that gets ignored because, again, after the season is over, we're watching tape and, you had a good interview or whatever. I'm just saying, damn, it's disheartening to see that because how much do you need to be able to do
Let me get in here really
quick.
quick. Why we have Tim obviously playing quarterback in the NFL. Tim, why do you think he's dropped?
To be honest with you, I don't know because, look, what I've seen from him, I absolutely love. And to be totally candid about when I started in watching him, I was expecting to see a guy that was similar to some of the other guys that came out of that program. I was expecting to kind of see Cardell Jones. I was expecting to see some Dwayne Haskins, who, by the way, I did not think Dwayne Haskins was a great prospect. I wasn't high on him when he was coming out. He's a completely different player than the guys that have come out of that program that we've seen drafted in recent memory. I would just say this to what Stephen A. was talking about. Look, obviously Tom Brady had success. That was a different generation